When you're considering which paddock you're going to sample, you need to revisit your farm plan and have a look and see what your objectives are in the long term for your farm, and maybe even where you might be going to subdivide other paddocks into the future. I think getting rotations right and pasture height right and the greenness of these pastures right in the first instance is important, and then start thinking about how do I need to improve these paddocks with fertiliser through a soil sample or a soil test. We've chosen a paddock here on Stewart's Place, and we're going to work out where in this paddock we can take the sample. So there's a few things to look out for when choosing that location or that transect, and that is that you don't take any samples near a camp like that tree over there where cattle might congregate. And when cattle congregate, they're moving nutrients from one part of the paddock and concentrating them there underneath that tree. So it's probably not really the average of this paddock underneath that tree. So we're going to exclude that from our transect. Also, any gateways that might be around where cattle might stand around waiting for them to come into the paddock, that's another place where you shouldn't test. And also around water troughs and infrastructure like that, shade and those sort of things. So we've picked a spot here in the middle of the paddock, and as you can see across the way there, we're trying to get an average of this paddock. It's a fairly flat paddock. You can see the grasses are all pretty uniform, so there's no telltale signs of a particular patch in this paddock that's low in nutrients, maybe a blady grass patch, or a place where carpet grass is, or a big clover patch. So we could probably just safely do a transact through here. So it could be an old dead stump like that one over there, or this tree over here that's fallen over. So Stuart and I have picked that tree, and we'll have a straight line from where we are here now, which we aren't near a gateway or anything else. It's sort of in the middle of the paddock, and we need to take about 20 samples into that sampler Stuart's got. So this sampler has got a little tube on it. It's 10 centimetres, takes us a core. They collect in this little bucket here, and we need to take about 20 of those at a minimum, and then we'll put them in a bucket and aggregate them together. Going to take the samples, you tread it into the ground, walk 5 paces and take another one, and work his way towards that tree. Now if he gets to that tree and decides I've only taken 15 and he needs another 5, he can go off at an angle somewhere in the centre of the paddock again and get his other 5 samples. And then I would advise you to get an aerial photograph of your property and mark that line on the aerial photograph and date it when you took the sample. So here's some of the samples Stuart's taken in the sample they've accumulated in the little bucket. They're only small little cores, and he's only taken about 5 or 6. He needs to take 20 of those, and then we'll put that 20 into a bucket. Okay. So when we were taking these samples, they were a bit dry, so some of these shorter ones, the sampler didn't go in far enough to take the full 10 centimetres. So it's generally good if you do the sampling after when your soil's moist, a bit of rain. We're lucky here because it's been pretty dry, but it's a flat area in Stuart's Place here, and it's a little bit of moisture here, but still not enough to get a full sample. But just as an example of how to do this, we've got these little samples here. We just mix them together, crush them together. You can take the leaf out and just mix all the samples together. We're trying to get an average of the paddock. So we've got a soil sampling kit from the Wollongbar lab. Inside there's the instructions and all your information you need to put down in there about the sample and what type of test you want. In in the bag you have to put in your ID of the paddock. What are you calling this paddock? So when you get your sample back, you know which paddock their sample's about. And there's instructions here about what you need to put on this bag. And you just put it all back together. Put it all back in the bag. Put the cap on. Probably best if you tape that cap down, both sides, and then the reply paid back to Wallenbar and send them away.